I haven't heard from him.
All right.
I've only heard from Mark, but let me double check.
Good evening, everyone. The time is 6:02. This is the Council City Workshop Budget Meeting. Clerk, can you please do roll call?
Councilwoman Aaron?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bliss? Councilman Fleming?
Here.
Councilman Rohrbach?
Here.
Councilman Soltis?
Here.
Councilman Wright? Mayor Grace?
I'm here, thank you. Can I please get a motion to excuse Mayor Pro Tem Bliss? He did give notice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Motion to approve the protest schools.
Passes. All right, thank you. Is there support? Support. Thank you. Motion's been made, seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carries. Mayor Pro Tem Bliss is excused. At this point, I'm going to open the meeting to the public. This is the opportunity for anyone in the public to address council. Seeing no one, I'm going to close meeting open to the public and move to new business, which is the presentation of the city manager's fiscal 2024 and 2025 proposed budget.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
what about a motion to excuse Councilman?
He's on his way.
Oh, is he on?
He's just gonna be late. He should be here any minute. Okay, well, thank you all for attending tonight to the proposed annual budget meeting that we use to go through the line item. This really is the opportunity for us to explain all of the details that are in the line item budget and get any of your questions answered ahead of the May 8th council meeting. By charter, we have to adopt the budget by the third meeting in May, so we need to get the questions and things out on the table tonight. So the proposed budget is presented in accordance with a detailed calendar that is contained in the policy document. Last fall, the annual budget process formally began with the prior year's audit presentation and strategic planning survey. In January, City Council met with staff to discuss updates to the strategic plan, which led to the completion of the capital improvement plan. Preparation of the operating budget began in January, and following the strategic plan development, the proposed budget was submitted to City Council on April the 6th. The remaining highlights of the budget calendar include tonight's budget presentation and workshop, and the adoption of the budget with the supporting tax levy and fees scheduled to take place on the council agenda of the second Monday in May, which is May the 8th. I'm now going to turn it over to Linda to cover the budget overview and the financial challenges that need to be considered as we review this proposed budget.
In our budget presentation today, we plan to discuss the guiding principles used in developing the budget. We will provide the fiscal year 2024 budget overview, discuss the financial challenges we face, the strategic plan, and how that aligns with the proposed budget and the significant capital improvement items that are included. Following this detailed discussion, we will briefly touch on other funds, including water and sewer fund, before opening it up to council comments and questions. In preparing the budget, the goals and financial policies adopted by City Council guided our process. First, staff has conservatively estimated revenues and expenditures, including a thorough review of each department with the respective department heads, and a careful and updated analysis of projected revenues. This includes reviewing the feasibility of adding staff. For fiscal year 2024, we have all agreed to hold off on the majority of the staff reoccurring cost until the capital projects are complete and we can assess where we are financially, especially given inflation and current interest rates. Second, we balance each special millage with the applicable expenses, focusing on millage reserves and prioritizing needed projects. Third, we analyze projected fund balance levels and determine how much funding was available for use while maintaining the targeted fund balance. This year, we anticipated very little use of the general fund balance, as there are still some unknowns for the major capital improvements project. And fourth, we reviewed taxes and fees being charged to the residents and businesses. This includes tax revenue estimates that are verified by Oakland County Equalization and a review and updated recommendation of fees. This budget is supported by a tax reduction of 0.5483 of a mil for fiscal year 2024 and an increase in water and sewer rates as these rates are being restructured. The city's number one financial challenge hindering our abilities to fully restore services to pre-recession levels are Proposal A and Headley. These both cap the amount of increase in taxable value of a municipality can have to the lesser of 5% or the state-approved rate of inflation, with no cap on the decreases. In fiscal year 2024, the multiplier is 5%. For current fiscal year 2023, it was 3.3%. This caps the city's overall taxable value growth. Unless the state reforms the structuring of restricting municipal revenue growth, the city will continue to struggle to keep up with the actual cost of inflation, which is currently around 8%, while being pressured to restore services. Even with historical increases in market values of homes in the area, the city's taxable value is only 87.3% of the taxable value it was in 2008, as shown on the slide. The second significant financial challenge is legacy cost of pensions. As of June 30, 2022, the general employees retirement system was 102% funded, while the police and fire pension is only 51%, or $41 million of a $92 million liability. This proposed budget continues to address this system's funding by budgeting a pension contribution of $3.3 million for fire and $4.2 million for police in both years. In addition, the Michigan Department of Treasury recently launched the Protecting My Pension Grant program. Under this program, the state treasury appropriated $750 million for qualified pension system with a funded ratio below 60%. Under the grant guidance, it is estimated that the city will receive $3.6 million for the police and fire pension system. This grant, coupled with additional budgeted funding that started in current fiscal year 2023, is projected to increase the funding level of the system to over 70% by June 30, 2025. The third significant financial challenge is state funding of local municipalities. While the state of Michigan and Oakland County have allocated some of their American Rescue funding to cities, the state's long-term structure to fund municipal services remains a serious issue. Michigan state revenue sharing began in the 1930s by taxing businesses with liquor license. Of that revenue, 85% went to fund municipalities. This revenue is not guaranteed, and it has gone through numerous formula changes and has not been fully funded since 2001. Over the past 15 years, local governments have lost millions of dollars due to these changes. For fiscal years 2002 through 2021, Madison Heights has lost $20.3 million during this period of disinvestment. Michigan has cut support for cities more than any other state since 2002, forcing municipalities to reduce services, staff, and look for ways to fund the status quo. For fiscal year 2024, does include an increase in state shared revenue based on recent state projections for a total budget of $3.8 million. By comparison, in 2002, 22 years ago, Madison Heights received $3.8 million in funding. General fund revenues are budgeted at $39 million, including a transfer from the Retirees Benefit Trust of $2.1 million, representing a planned use of trust assets as forecasted by the city's the system's actuaries. This represents an increase of $3.1 million or 8.7% from fiscal year 2023 amended budget, directly related to the Retiree Benefits Trust transfer, an increase in private funding and taxable value. Compared to fiscal year 2023 amended budget, the general fund expenditures are estimated to be down $5.4 million or 12.1% for fiscal year 2024. Although, as discussed, this difference is due to a combination of items, including reduced transfer amounts for the Civic Center and Fire Station 2 projects that were budgeted in current fiscal year 2023 at $8.2 million, a decrease in contribution for retiree health care and general employee pension obligations of $447,000, and increases in police and fire contributions of $1.7 million, and personnel service increases of $1.2 million over the amended budget for fiscal year 23. Personnel increases relate to healthcare cost increases and negotiated changes to police and fire union contracts to stay competitive with wage and benefits. Capital outlay purchases for all funds totaled $9.5 million in fiscal year 2024. In fiscal year 2024, investment in capital outlay remains higher than historical averages due to road rehabilitation and reconstruction projects, including R3 dedicated millage projects, major road sectional work, sidewalk repair, and water and sewer line replacement. Due to continued strong financial management, the city has had the ability to use reserves funding to make much needed investments in our community to renovate the library, active adult center, city hall, and fire station 2. The general fund audited fund balance was $21.5 million as of June 30, 2022. But the assigned fund balance was $14.1 million. This fund balance remains intentionally higher than our fund balance policy because we save funding for the construction projects. Based on projections, the assigned fund balance will be reduced to $5.6 million at the end of fiscal year 2024, which is at the required minimum fund balance of 16% of expenditures, operating expenditures, plus 1 year of debt payments. Staff was mindful of the policy as we established the citywide strategic plan and prepared this budget for council consideration. Turning to other funds, we are focusing on water and sewer funds where both expenditures and revenues are budgeted at approximately $12.2 million. As shown on this slide, the most significant expenditures are the purchase of water from Great Lakes Water Authority, 21%, and sewer and stormwater treatment from Oakland County, 42%. Also included are replacements of sewer and water lines, budgeted at $985,000, or 19% of the proposed budget. These expenditures are supported by revenues made up primarily of user rates. Rates have not been adjusted since July 1st of 2019. Although we have experienced increased cost, including increases from both GLEWA, Great Lakes Water Authority, and Oakland County for water and sewer. The city has been completing and is continuing to complete significant capital outlay to keep the system safe and reliable in the current and next 5 years to the distribution system. The existing cash on hand and current customer rates are not sufficient to pay for all necessary system improvements or basic operational cost and commodities past the current fiscal year. The model will calculate the necessary rate increases over 5 years in order to pay for the cash needs of the system and establish a minimum recommended working capital reserve. For these reasons and the fact that the fund is at the point that we can no longer sustain commodity increases without increasing our end user rate. Rates are being proposed to increase effective with bills on or after July 1st, 2023. These rate changes include the storm water rate will be eliminated from all bills. For each unit billed, water and wastewater rates will increase from a total of $6.96 to $10.56 per unit. Each unit equals 748 gallons of water, meaning end users pay less than 2 cents per gallon. Even with this rate increase, Madison Heights will be the lowest water and wastewater rates in the region. This slide compares the proposed fiscal year 2024 rate from Madison Heights with fiscal year 2023 rates of nearby communities. The average rate is represented by Lathrop Village in blue, with an average bill of $172.44 for 12 units of water, while Madison Heights' average's bill will be only $126.72. Before we review the line item budget by department, I'm turning it over to Melissa to talk about priorities we have included in the proposed budget.
Starting in 2018, City Council and staff worked to develop plans to articulate the future vision of the community. These plans considered everyone who lives or visits Madison Heights and centered around creating a solid tax base to allow us to build a strong community and provide services at superior levels. We are now in year 5 of this process. The highlights that are included in the budget that you're asked to consider tonight come directly from the strategic plan. First, the top priority of public safety. We have been awarded a funding and have worked with Habitat for Humanity to increase the $850,000 granted to over $1 million to start a neighborhood improvement project in the area south of Lincoln and north of I-696. This project will help residents make improvements and cover a wide range of home activities such as roofs, siding, windows, and other needs. The budget also includes support money for this project, such as community engagement for $3,000 and the community development funds for other home improvements. We have reinstated the part-time code enforcement position. This position was eliminated in the current fiscal year due to our inability to hire and retain anyone for this position. We have now reinstated it due to a recent retiree willing to come back and fill the role, so that is included in your current budget. Other items include capital for the regular replacement of our patrol vehicles, and building improvements. I do want to take 1 minute to talk about fire equipment. We've included in the budget a Quint. This is a new piece of apparatus that will replace one current piece, but delay the funding of our ladder truck. This is being phase funded in the current budget that you have at $600,000 a year in 2024 and 2025. However, just this morning we found out that this piece of equipment is actually going to cost closer to $1.5 million instead of the $1.2. Therefore, after this presentation, I want to invite the fire chief up to discuss briefly this change of direction and how this purchase will be beneficial to the city moving forward. In March of 2021, the city finalized its Parks and Recreation Master Plan. In fiscal year 2022, the general fund budget for parks improvements included $551,000 with an additional $792,000 in 2023. This proposed budget includes an investment in our parks of $675,000 in 2024. This money will continue to be maximized by using grant funding whenever possible. In fiscal year 2024, we are specifically planning to address $200,000 toward field light replacements, for which we have also written a grant for the rest of the funding, $230,000 for improvements in Rosie's Park, $88,000 for basketball court refurbishment in Civic Center Park that will also hopefully be enhanced with a grant, and $50,000 for special project allocation. The special project funding can be carried forward into future budget years to be saved for significant park enhancements or utilized as a match grant for opportunities and new features. Continuing with quality of life, the library budget includes an ongoing makerspace which is added in the new addition. This is funded at $11,000 a year in 2024. It also includes $5,000 for the Library of Things equipment budget. Other quality of life inclusions: a fixed amount of labor and equipment rental of $1,500 per event for city boards and commissions special events, capped at 6 events per year. Any amount above this $1,500 or more than 6 events would be reimbursed to the city, typically through fundraisers that the boards and commissions hold. Gateway entrance signage is included at $250,000. This has an offsetting revenue of $100,000 from private donations. It is possible that we end up with $250,000 in additional private donations as well. As directed at the strategic planning meeting, the staff is working on a recycling grant to provide recycling toters to residents. This is not included in the budget that you currently will be reviewing because it'll only be completed if the grant is awarded. If so, we will be presenting a budget amendment at that time to City Council. Moving on to economic development, the DDA has included a streetscaping plan, continue their annual tree planting, and the partnership with the Madison Heights Hazel Park Chamber of Commerce for services. It It also continues the banner program, gateway signage, and other district-wide enhancements that will be determined as part of the streetscaping plan. The city has had a long-standing reputation for strong financial policies and practices. These have been enhanced with our strategic planning process and our multi-year budget. Since 2007, this budget process has highlighted the city's significant financial challenges as the legacy cost for pension and retiree health care. In 2001, we made significant changes to retiree health care, bringing it in line with health insurance offered to active employees. This reduced the city's liability by over $57 million, from $102 million to $45 million. The fiscal year 2024 budget continues to reflect this change in funding retirees' health care premiums from the trust instead of paying from current year operations. This is shown as a transfer into the general fund from the Retiree Health Care Trust. The fiscal year 2024 budget includes city funding for the police and fire pension, which is currently 51% funded. We are including an additional contribution of $3.8 million above the actuarially required contribution for this year. Last is sustainability. Sustainability projects are included in the budget at $27,000 to continue repopulating the tree canopy citywide. The city is also working with DTE for electric vehicle rebates for 6 to 8 charging stations. These are currently being planned as part of the Civic Center project. However, if full funding does not allow for this addition, it may be requested as a future budget amendment. As approved by City Council at last week's council meeting, staff is also working on a grant for a sustainability master plan. This again has not been included in your budget and will only be completed if grant funding is available, at which time we will present back to council for a budget amendment. Before I conclude the presentation, I want to acknowledge the outstanding efforts of Adam Azorzik and the Finance Director Linda Kunith, as well as the department heads and staff for their hard work and efforts in the development and planning of their multi-year budgets for their departments, and their continued commitment to providing excellent services to our residents. I would also like to thank the Mayor and City Council for their leadership and support in planning the city's financial operations responsibly and progressively, and watching our planning and efforts bring success to our community. And before I turn it back over to Council, I want to defer to Greg Lolito, who I didn't check to make sure showed up, to talk about the fire department equipment and explain to you what a quint is and how that would be beneficial.
Good evening. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present this to you. So back in the fall, we looked at ways to improve operations of the fire department. That's when we took a look at the Quint. Now, a Quint truck is a fire engine just with a ladder truck on it. So it's not as robust as you would see our ladder truck now. So it's a smaller ladder truck. But right now, we do not staff the ladder truck with any personnel. That ladder truck is staffed with the ambulance where they would hop over depending on the call. So we're looking at how to improve operations. Now, Station 2 was built with this concept in mind. That's why we made the base a little bit larger so it could fit this piece of apparatus. So when we started looking at this, I started doing the research, and we were given a number, and that's when I presented to at our budget meeting, this $1.2 million back in January, because we thought that's what it would be. But since doing some meeting with 3 different manufacturers, the prices increased significantly due to demand and inflation. We can't keep up with, and many other cities can't keep up with the price of these costs of fire engines. So we're actually dealing with prices going up in June. So that's why we're asking for some more money. So we're just looking to staff a fire engine at 24, 7 days a week. We will always have a ladder truck in service. And we're also looking to push the life expectancy of the ladder truck. Right now it's on a 30-year life expectancy, so we're maybe going to push that to 35 to 40 years to get another 10 years from a ladder truck. So right now that larger ladder truck is over $2 million to replace. So that's why we're looking at this alternative solution that would improve operations, and it would allow us to have a fire ladder at every single fire. This is also a piece of equipment that would respond just like an engine would on everyday operations.
So it's important to get council's feedback or buy-in on the piece of equipment because there's a 26-month lead time, so we would be ordering that before the end of the fiscal year. So if council adopted this budget on May the 8th, we would ideally be placing that order have that on the agenda at the same time and place it the next day.
Before June 1st, our manufacturer that we have used for our engines, which we would probably leaning towards, there's a 4% increase as of June 1st. So we're looking at another $60,000 if we do not move this before June 1st.
So it currently is in the budget $600,000 a year, 2024, 2025. We would end up doing a budget amendment for 150 when we ask council to approve the purchase, and then we'll budget the second phase of that in 2025. So we don't have to pay for it until it's delivered.
Yes, 26 to 29 months.
Okay,
So,
this-
go ahead if you have questions.
Okay, I just want to confirm the numbers that you're saying here. So we would approve this budget on May 8th, and then we would do a budget amendment for 150 for this current year. And then we would then make a motion to buy it now. So on May
Yes.
9th, you would submit it, and then we would be in before the June 1st increase.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
Okay,
But the money is not due to 2026.
okay.
So we would carry forward the 150. It'll be a separate agenda item on the agenda of May the 8th if council says tonight that they're interested in moving that way. And then we would carry that forward, add it to the 600,000. And then in 2025, we would be budgeting 750. So we would have all the money when that comes in.
All right, and it's going to cost 1.5 million.
Well,
It's 1.48.
we're at this preliminary. We haven't not sat down. That's just a preliminary numbers we
Okay.
get, but it won't be over that.
Okay, as opposed to the 1.2 that we thought it would be. But
Correct.
if we went for a regular truck, it would be costing us 2 million or more.
If we went to replace the ladder truck that we were starting to phase in this coming up year, it would be over $2 million.
Okay, doesn't sound like there's really too much to talk about or think about on that one then, but if there are
Just to give
any
you an idea,
questions-
when it talks about inflation and demand, the fire engines that we purchased in 2019 cost us $602,000.
I remember that.
Today, that vehicle is $950,000.
Yeah.
So just in a 3-year span, it's been over $300,000 increase for the same exact vehicle.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Do I address it to you or to him?
You can ask the question if it makes sense to answer.
Okay. All right. Just, do we take into consideration Oakway usage when we are budgeting, or is that just outside of our consideration?
In,
In consideration of equipment usage, like for example, if there's another fire out at Oak
Yes.
Hills or something like that, like do we take that into consideration, usage of our equipment? Like the Oakway
Yeah.
membership?
for like to share
Yeah,
usage?
shared resources.
This one would, because this would be like more of a frontline vehicle. But yeah, we do, we most recently, we've asked Birmingham to supply us with the ladder truck. So we do look at sharing resources. To share purchases, no, not really. We have looked at it before, but we really haven't gone any further than that, besides looking into it when it comes to shared purchasing.
I guess what I was trying to
Yeah.
get at is, do we consider how much more damage or like usage
Oh.
our vehicles get as being part of a partnership and budget for that?
Well, it's a two-way street. So when we help them, they also help us. So it is a mutual agreement back and forth. I give you an example. The most recent fire at the Oakland Hills Golf Club, we are getting reimbursed for our vehicle use. So we do get, for a large fire, we do get some reimbursements from the insurance companies.
Any other?
Yeah, so the ladder truck right now is gonna be replaced, I mean, that's the current ladder truck, you're saying
What?
is planned to be replaced?
The current truck the current vehicle we're speaking of will replace a fire engine.
Fire engine?
And we're gonna hopefully extend the service life of the ladder truck that's at Fire Station 1.
Oh, but this also will have another ladder on it?
A smaller ladder, correct.
Smaller ladder. What
Yes.
is the height difference between the two?
The one that we're looking at right at 75 feet, the one that's at Fire Station 1 is 100 foot with a bucket on it. This will just be a straight ladder.
Straight ladder.
Yes.
Your Honor,
Yes.
and so Chief, that's a replacement of the one that,
This vehicle will replace a fire engine.
fire engine?
A fire engine. So it's going to do the same function as a fire engine, it just will give us access to a ladder truck on every single call.
Is that necessary to have a ladder at every call?
On every fire call, yes.
Well, not
Yes,
a fire call, but I see,
Well, that's the way our staffing runs is we do not staff that ladder truck. So the majority of the fires in the city do not have a ladder truck on the fire calls. Unless it's a commercial building or high-rise, the ladder truck does not respond.
Okay, so like on a regular call, I see obviously the ambulance, but then I see a big truck following.
Yes, that's only on certain calls, certain priority calls.
What kind of calls are those?
So any type of difficulty breathing, chest pain, but if it's a low priority, the fire engine does not respond, just the ambulance does.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
With that, I'll turn it over to council if you want to go through any questions or line by line, however.
Sure. Does anyone have any questions that jump out at you that you don't understand or don't like or anything? Or if you're fine with it, it's fine. You don't have to ask questions, but this is the opportunity if council does have any questions about this. Anything else?
I have a question. When we're talking about the streetscaping for the DDA, what is the actual plan that you have, or have you guys discussed?
So that it would be a plan. It would be to develop a plan.
To develop,
So
okay.
currently, we don't have a plan, and there have been several things tossed around. So we have identified several areas, 3 different areas in the DDA that we would be asking them to look at. So it would be things like walkability, making the streets safer, those kinds of things, planting trees, benches, anything like that in areas that, I know one of the areas that's already been picked is near Woodpile, also near the high school, because there are grants available for areas near schools, and that's also kind of started to get the feel of a downtown with the Woodpile and the ice cream place across the road. So that would be one area. So they'll be doing some community engagement, coming up with some visuals and a plan, so then going forward, the DDA or the city can look at that plan and say, oh, there's grant funding, what are we going to do? So instead of just guessing and doing stuff haphazardly all over the area, we'll have more focused plans and cost, hopefully, of what different things would be.
Is there anyone else with any questions?
I do, Your Honor.
Let's go ahead, please.
So we'll start with the senior center, or active adult center. So it's the wages like it increased. I'm just curious. I'm not criticizing. I'm just curious why it went up to about 140 a year for the proposed.
One of the main reasons is when we do, and if you caught it in Linda's part of the presentation, it said personnel services went up $1.2 million. We all did not get huge raises, I just want to say. When we do union contracts, we don't put in the budgeted, we don't have a budgeted amount. We don't know what it is going to be. So in fiscal year 2022-23, there were no wage increases at all. We ended up settling those contracts at the end of 2022. So you're actually seeing 2 years of wage increases rolled up into 2024. So that's not just 1 year, that's actually 2 years compounded.
For how many employees?
There are 2 full-time employees at the Active Adult Center. And then we have various bus drivers that are listed under part-time.
And then the program activity. Does that suffice for our senior people around? I mean, is that, do we need to raise that if possible?
So that's the money, I feel like we are a really good place with our fees, but that's like where if you go on a bus trip or you're participating in the activities that they have there, the cooking classes and whatnot, the registration fees for those types of things. There are other revenues for the Active Adult Center. We have a SMART helps pay for the bus drivers. If you turn to page 3, there's senior citizen activities, senior centers, senior non-program fees. There's also senior center rental, and then there's a millage for the seniors. It still is supplemented by the general fund, but that's mostly, if that answers your question about program activity.
And then there's other charges. In 22-23 it was 48,000, and there's nothing after that.
Are you looking in program activity?
Looking on page 31, other charges.
Oh, that'd be in the current year.
Oh, I would have to look up exactly what that's for. That's not a line item we normally budget, so that's something additional that happened in 2023.
I'd just like to see us do more for the seniors. I know we've been talking about that forever. Like helping out with code enforcement issues, uncut laws, lawns, leaves. I know we had that, you still have that program where there's volunteers that come out and help?
The SHARP program?
Yeah.
No, that program has been eliminated due mostly to volunteers.
Right.
And there's also funding issues. But the program that you're talking about isn't on page 31. It's under CDBG. So there's lawn care there.
Where's that item at?
I have to find it. I want to say it is page 50.
50, you said?
Yeah, 50 is the lawn care services for seniors and disabled residents.
Under what, community development?
Yeah, at the bottom of the page. It's the home chore program.
So prior, there was no funding for that? Is that-
No, we have been funding this for as long as I've been here,
But it's not
probably
listed?
before. It is listed on page 50.
That's where I'm at, so that, I only see 23, 24, I don't see 21, 22.
Oh, you need to go up under the line item where it says 276-728-818-000. And it doesn't have all the activity, it only goes back to 2021.
So we're currently, is budgeted for about 74,000.
74,239.
That's quite a bit. And how is that, how many, do you know how many seniors that's servicing?
I don't know. I would have to defer to Giles if
I mean,
he
are we
knows off the
turning
top of
anyone-
his head. I don't.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, do we turn anybody away?
I don't know the answer to that. Do you know the
I'd
answer?
like to know at some point.
So are we
You
referring
have to go to the
lawn-
microphone.
sorry. So we're referring to the lawn care program? Is that what
Yes.
the lawn cutting
Seniors,
covers?
right?
Yeah, so
Exclusively, correct?
seniors and those with disabilities,
Okay.
there's an income requirement. All the funds in the community improvement fund, that's all coming from community development block grant.
Right.
So we vary probably, I would say in the last 2 or 3 years since I've been here, it's been around 50 to upwards to 60 seniors that take advantage of that program every year. So that's what we do. In past years, there was other types of services that were provided to seniors, but since I've been here, it's just been lawn care.
Right, so I just want to, is there a waiting list? Are there people that?
No, I am not aware of anyone that was turned away or on a waiting list for that type of service.
Do we communicate that to the seniors?
Yeah, that's something that is communicated to seniors. It's the program's made available
How do we
at
do
the
that? How do
the
we-
Active Adult Center. I imagine it's advertised at there. I know that the majority of the intake is done at the Active Adult Center. And I'm responsible for applying for the grant, and then our office is responsible for administrating that grant. So I go out to bid, we track the money going out, we pay the contractor.
And so then, Keith, if I can ask you, you're in charge of code enforcement. Do you have any seniors that are cited and then they use this program?
To answer that, we have had some seniors that were cited, but they shouldn't have been. And we did make sure that they were referred to that program. And code does that as a general rule. If we find out that one of the lawns that has been tagged as being too tall, if we find out that it is a senior, it's one of the first things that code enforcement does is refers them to the program.
So it sounds like it's working.
It's working, yes.
Design. And, Chief, you got another minute. I lost the page number, but it was with the SIU, right now is dormant.
Yes and no. So right now, due to personnel shortages, actually about a year ago, we took SIU and rephased it back into the road patrol. Within the next 2 weeks, our road patrol sergeant is going to be placed back into SIU, and SIU is going to be opening on a temporary basis with the use of officers on an overtime basis to start with. But then as soon as our personnel are back up to where we need to be, that we're able to open it, it will be opened up full-time immediately.
And then, I'm sorry.
What is SIU?
The Special Investigations Unit, I'm sorry.
Thank you. English.
Which was the best program we designed.
Yes.
Linda, what was that page number?
You're talking about 49 for drug forfeiture funds,
Yeah.
as to why we have to participate in order to receive funding.
So that particular line item in the forfeiture fund is from Oakland County Narcotics Enforcement Team, or NET. That was also one of the things that we did when we were short on personnel, is we removed our person from the Narcotics Enforcement Team. And on average, over the past few years, it averages anywhere from 30,000 to maybe 45,000 of forfeiture income that's derived from being part of that unit. So because we're not part of that unit right now, we can't budget, not that we're budgeting that money, but we can't even show that that money's coming in, as we won't receive it unless we participate.
And we still, when we first got involved with the FBI, they provided certain funds, didn't they? What?
So with the FBI task force, again, that's another task force, they do provide for, I believe, it's about $17,500 in reimbursement for overtime that they provide to us. They also do provide, although it's not a main goal of the unit, but if they do run into or have forfeitures, then similar to Oakland County Net, we get a split of those forfeitures. Right now, there's, I want to say, roughly about 25 outstanding forfeitures that, with the federal government, it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 years to obtain that funding. So that will be trickling in over the next couple of years.
Do you know how much that would be? Or?
No, because it all depends on how much, there's a formula that they use that we don't even know. You know, we don't have that formula, but the formula is used for how much money they have invested into the investigation federally, and then whatever is left over, it gets split equally amongst the participating agencies.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants any questions? Thank you, Chief.
I did have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the beginning, there was, you had went over about a personnel freeze sorts, right? Can you explain, will that be affecting the police department or the fire department?
So it's not really a personnel freeze. If there's a vacancy, we fill the position right away. As a matter of fact, we started several years ago, at least probably 4 or 5 years ago. If we know that someone's retiring, we proactively hire the person to get them trained and up to speed before the person leaves, if we can. It's hard to hire some positions. So there's not a freeze. We just haven't added new positions to the budget because that's a reoccurring cost. And we wanted to get like a good financial footing after we got finished fixing all of our capital, because we've done a lot of capital infrastructure improvements throughout the city that hopefully will serve the city well into the future, just this year.
So based on the number of officers or firefighters that we have, right, at what year, are you basing that off this year? That you're going to, let's say we have 4 retirees, we're just going to replace them, and we won't go above that number of people, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, do we need to vote on? We're not voting on to approve this, are we?
No, typically you don't. You just give us direction that this is the budget that you want presented back to you on the 8th, and we go in and, if there were any changes today, we would make those changes, but based on this, there aren't any. So we would just put the final touches on it and put it on the agenda for the 8th along with the water rate resolution and the tax levy resolution that council will be adopting that night as well.
All right, and we're not, can we add for this new fire engine with the ladder, or no, we just do that all on the 8th?
We have other revenues that we were going to use in this fiscal year, so we wanted to add the money to the fiscal year 2023 budget and then carry it forward. It's basically just an accounting mechanism. But we have some revenue coming in for the firefighter response during COVID that we haven't received yet, but we plan on it. So we want to do a budget amendment and utilize that money back to the fire department in this year. So we'll amend it and carry it forward.
Okay, so then we don't need to do anything with that. Then I guess we are done with our business of the presentation with that. And we can do the review now. Okay. Do I need to make a motion?
I'm not sure, are you wanting to
Well,
go
no,
through
I mean,
page
if
by
there's no more
page, or
questions.
just ask if there are any more questions?
No,
or-
it doesn't seem that there are any questions, so I'm trying to figure out what the difference was between the presentation and the review. This is on here twice.
Yeah, normally city
Okay.
council will, and you don't
Online.
have to do this
Yeah.
because it's probably not the most efficient thing,
Yeah.
but they would go page by page and be like, general fund revenues, does anybody have any questions? So all the council's on the same page when they're looking, but
Well, let me ask, I mean.
there's
we can
nothing
do
that says you have to do that.
We can do it line by line, but it sounds as though Councilman Soltis had some very specific questions that he asked. Councilwoman Aaron had a very specific question that she asked, so.
Your Honor,
You have a specific question?
I've read through the budget and I feel good about it, so I'm not,
Okay.
I don't need an explanation line by line, so.
Okay. I mean, if there is something, I just want to make the statement, if you want to do it, we can, but nothing jumped out at me as something that I would question or be concerned about, so I'm fine. And I expect, unless there's a major change in the next couple of weeks, I'll be approving this on the May 8th, so.
I would only just stress if there are any questions or, you're a little unsure about it, this is the time to bring it up because under our charter, it has to be adopted by the third Monday of May. So if you wait till May the 8th, it's a little late. So,
I had a question.
Yeah.
I read through the budget, but it sparked a thought in my head, just skimming through it again here. It was just, we've had a light winter, and so does that have an impact on our budget, knowing that we didn't have a lot of snow removal? And if so, how much does that impact the budget?
well, we always budget for what we don't make the budget less because we had a low winter this past year, but it does affect overtime and salt usage, although we are pre-committed to purchasing salt.
Okay.
So it's not like you can call them up now and say, never mind, it didn't snow here, we're not going to take it. But we base the budget on the average of Michigan, not, we think it's going to be warmer this year or that year, whatever. We don't really fluctuate it around that way. But a lot of that cost is seen in the major and local streets funds. So any money that didn't get used for, say, DPS services would just go back into the fund balance and be utilized in future years for roads in those two funds.
Okay. Thanks. I do have one other question, right?
Go ahead.
The, during the last few storms that we've had, where we had a lot of down limbs and the DPS has gone around and kind of gathered them up and shipped them, I don't think, did you guys charge anybody for that at all, or was it completely free?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The only time we've charged is when the resident called in, they, like say they'd taken down a tree in their backyard, they wanted to do the chipping. For the storm response, though, we do not. We just go through the city, we patrol it. We had 3 back-to-back windstorms, and we went ahead and just went through. We do not send a bill for that service.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Your Honor?
Another question? Go
I
ahead.
want to think about it. Usually the courts here, but I know during the height of COVID, our revenue went down because of not giving out tickets. It looks like it's going back up.
So the chief and myself and Larry Sherman and Jeff and Tim met with the court to see what we could do to bring the court back up just to cover court expenses. We're not trying to make money on the court, as you hear about, but just to cover the court operation expenses. And that was really the mandate from me back to them this year, is before I send this to you with all their full staffing, that they raise enough revenue just to cover their staffing cost. Ideally, that's how it should work. And so we did come up with several different things that we could do differently, thanks in part to the police department, that they can, not for them doing more enforcement, but for them coming up with new ideas and things to break even. So you did see an increase because since COVID, the general fund has been supplementing the court system in Madison Heights, which basically means the tax dollars that can't go to parks, can't go to hire police or fire, it's going to fund the court system because they're not charging the people that are using the court system for just their basic operating cost. So that is the difference.
You said new ideas, what kind?
Just different ways that we can like recoup some fees. Like one of the things, and I think we were sort of already doing it, is like when a drunk driver gets pulled over, you can charge them to recoup the cost of the test and things that they had to have that the city is paying for. So small things like that, probation charges, different ways of handling certain situations.
So then the, the proposed budget for 2025 is like 2.3 million?
Do you know what page you're on?
Page 2.
19, I saw 19.
Oh, you're looking at expenses. Okay.
Right. It's a big jump.
I think that actually is a typing error.
No way.
It is. If you look up to under fiscal year 2025, so we're focusing most of our efforts on 2024, but this needs to be corrected. Under MERS pension, it says $775,000, which
Oh, gosh, yeah.
there's no way that's correct. So
That's not correct, no.
thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Can we go through it line by line now?
Yeah.
Good catch.
Do I get a reimbursement or something?
You just wait on the check. It's in the mail.
Yeah.
I have an X, I know exactly what it is.
Anything else jump out at you?
No, I'm good.
Sure, you're the eagle eye right now.
Yeah.
Okay, then I would say if there's no more questions from council, great presentation, great job, Linda, Adam, both of you, Melissa, obviously, great job. Appreciate everything that you've done. Looking forward to getting this done in May. I'm gonna close this meeting then. It's 6:54 and the meeting is adjourned. Good night. Thank you.